We often blame an inability to change on weak mental stamina. Well, this is the easy route and it's far too simplistic. It's also dangerous. So how about we find out why? On my 90-day mission to become unstoppable for my brand new upcoming book, The Identity Gap, that's out in October of this year, I decided to ask the question, why don't people change? But I decided to look at it very differently. What if an inability to change was a symptom and not the actual cause? And this led me to speaking to the top minds, biohackers, neuroscientists, clinical social workers, doctors, as well as brain health experts to explore what are the other factors that are influencing our mood and our behavior as well as our energy that's preventing us from not only instigating the change but sustaining it in the long term. And what I found was in fact pretty staggering. We know from countless studies that have been done worldwide and for years now, in fact just for one example, vitamin B12 deficiencies can result in neurological disorders. Everything from depression, anxiety, inability to focus, as well as difficulty with reading and writing. Now, speaking to various doctors and experts, we are experiencing what is called the Great Nutrient Collapse, and this is causing great alarm for many scientists the globe over. What the scientists are finding is our food supply changes as well as farming practices change, and the rise in CO2 and our oxygen. Our food production is increasing, but the nutrient level and quality of that food is decreasing with that. So although a healthy diet and balanced diet 50 years ago may have supplied all of the nutritional elements that we needed for cognitive function and to easily implement change was satisfactory about 50 years ago, now we're experiencing a massive decline in that nutrient, and these deficiencies are also resulting in mood and behavior changes that aren't just affecting children, they're affecting everybody as a whole. And as a result, if we are experiencing some kind of nutritional deficiency, this can provide us with fatigue, anxiety, depression, and an inability to change, particularly, as well as drive and motivation. And when we experience fatigue and low energy, our brain switches into what is called self-preservation mode. So it's going to preserve your existing energy sources for vital bodily functions. So if you're trying to instigate some kind of change in your life and you're in self-preservation mode, your brain's going to go, no way. This change is totally off the table. In fact, it's scary and it could be life-threatening to the brain protecting your current resources and life as it knows it. It's not necessarily a conscious thought, it's unconscious behavior, our primal instincts at play. And what we need to factor in is if you have a goal over here, but your current energy is sitting here, we have what is known as an energetic gap. So we need to close this particular gap. If you're experiencing nutritional deficiency, so you're over on this side, then your brain is going to gear you towards potential mood swings, fluctuations in behavior, a lack of focus, and a total inability to change because it's just not wired to help you achieve your goals currently. So when we close this gap, you in fact come into alignment. And if you've ever felt that push and pull, something doesn't feel right, yes, you want to achieve the goal, but you just can't seem to make that change, it could come down to nutritional deficiencies and a lack of energy. When we close it, we come into alignment and change suddenly becomes a hell of a lot easier. So what if you are experiencing this current push and pull now? You're trying to make change and it's super hard. Well, here's a few key tips that you may want to consider. Number one, see a functional doctor and get your mineral levels, your vitamin levels, everything tested to ensure that you're at optimal levels. And when you get your test results back, you want to ask a very specific follow-up question. Typically when we get our results, and it may be over the phone, the doctors will say, okay, you were normal for this, 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 and this. You want to ask, am I at the high end of that normal range or am I at the low end of that normal range? If you're at the low end, you're on the verge of potentially a nutritional deficiency. Now, our tolerance level for these nutritional deficiencies vary based on not only genetics as well as our microbiome and our current environment. Everyone needs to be treated individually. The second thing that you want to consider, which is pretty shocking to me personally after speaking to a medical director, is that this normal range is defined on what is required for a white male 70 kilogram man. Now, we don't all weigh 70 kilograms and we're not all white males. Obviously, gender, ethnicity, and environmental factors all need to be taken into consideration. So ask that follow-up question. Am I at the high end or the low end of the normal range? If you're at the low end of the normal range, it's certainly not optimal, potentially for you or for someone else. Others may be able to deal with it, but you want to ask that question. By seeing a functional doctor, they'll be able to advise you on what supplementation that you can take to correct course to alleviate any brain fog and boost your energy up as well. Number 2, you want to address food cravings, and here's why. When we experience a food craving, our brain once again goes into that self-preservation mode, and it switches down functions such as assessing the consequences of certain actions. And that includes, do I eat that really super unhealthy pizza, or do I go for the salad and the healthy chicken? By addressing this, we not only boost our energy, but we also are able to even out our mood throughout the day. So typically, if you're eating sugars, having lots of caffeine and refined carbohydrates, your energy will go up and down and you'll experience crashes. You want to put your brain into a position where it says to itself that there's enough energy not only for the current physiological processes, but as well your goal and the changes that you want to make overall. And stay tuned for my upcoming videos in which I'm going to share with you some of the supplements that you can take to help rid yourself of these cravings. Number 3, use the right tool for the problem. I see many in the self-help industry, countless gurus who are saying if you're not able to make the change, it's because there's a lack of mental stamina. That's simply not the case. We need to recognize what the underlying issue is and use the right tool to address it. Psychology and self-help is incredible. Do not get me wrong, I've been in this field for over 15 years. But even myself right now am recognizing just how inadequate a lot of that advice is, particularly if you're trying to get someone to write a gratitude journal and they have a vitamin D deficiency, which is gearing them towards potential depression and anxiety and low drive. It's very hard to address something like that if you're experiencing very real physical symptoms and you're trying to self-medicate with self-help. Yes, gratitude journals are phenomenal, but just imagine how much more gratitude you'll feel when your brain is fully awake and you have the energy to focus in on those feelings. The other thing that we need to be aware of, and I've had lengthy conversations with a clinical social worker, is when we're focusing or doing self-development work, are we doing it when our energy is high or when our energy is low? In fact, she's even started assessing the various patients that she had over the years and is now thinking, was their therapy session more effective at a certain time of the day, and was that general for everyone, or was it individually based? And was it also influenced on any foods that they ate before they came into the therapy session that was influencing their mood and behavior? And we know with various food sensitivities, specifically caffeine for one of them, if someone's super sensitive, that can lead to anxiety and depression. So don't use the wrong tool for the problem. Making a list and having a diary to keep yourself focused, yes, that's vital, but if you do have nutritional deficiencies, then that's only going to mask the problem, make you feel a little bit better about yourself for a little while until you get and default back to that biochemistry and you start having those negative thoughts. And nutritional deficiencies have a funny way of amplifying all of your worst emotions and making you your worst enemy because you start blaming yourself instead of recognizing that there's some kind of deficiency that once addressed, your cognitive abilities will come back and you'll be able to make change in a way that you've never been able to make before. And when you address any nutritional deficiencies, food sensitivities, or even medications that may influence your mood, and specifically for medications, speak to your doctor about those. When you address all of those other factors that can influence how you perceive change and whether it's hard or whether it's easy, the psychological work and the need for it diminishes greatly because you have the cognitive ability to assess problems, to assess change, and make those habitual changes that are going to set you up for a lifetime. If you're trying to make a serious change when you've put your brain into self-preservation mode, it's going to be incrementally harder than if you address those issues as step one instead of not addressing them at all and blaming yourself. If you find this information fascinating and incredibly useful, please share it with your friends, family, co-workers, and leave a comment below. I'd love to know about your experiences in making change. Second of all, make sure you hit subscribe and like, and also head over to the identitygap.co to partake in a survey in which we're finding out what are the biggest challenges that you're facing right now, and this data is being used to help shape the upcoming book that will be released later this year. That's the identitygap.co. In the meantime, take care. Can't wait to see you again shortly.